All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion entitled Power of Poetry, Poets' Perspectives. My name is Shawnee Smith, and I'm the founder of SJS Writes. And I am pleased and honored to introduce to you a dynamic panel of poets who will not only share their poetry with us, but who will also share how poetry has impacted their lives. I'll introduce our first panelist. Our first panelist is Dr. Mansour Asib.
Hello, how are you?
Dr. Hasib is an award-winning educator who is passionate about bringing out the inner greatness in everyone. His latest book, Bring Inner Greatness Out, Personal Brand, is transforming lives globally and helping people get jobs, promotions, and multiple sources of income. He is the author of the widely acclaimed book, Cybersecurity Leadership, which is listed among the best books of all time in the field. Dr. Asib wrote poetry during his formative years and published these poems in the book, Muses and Rhymes, 1968 to 1975. All three books are available globally in ebook, print, and author-narrated audio. Dr. Asib has 30 years of experience leading organizational transformations through digital leadership and cybersecurity strategy in healthcare, biotechnology, education, and energy. To access content or to contact Dr. Asib, visit www.cybersecurityleadership.com. Our second panelist is Ms. Tamiko Evans, who is the founder and CEO of Aerial Footprint LLC. She is known as the hashtag cyber rapper. She currently serves as the 2022 committee chair for CDC ATSDR local chapter of Blacks in Government mentorship program. Tamiko has also served as the local chapter's webmaster, co-chair, and mentorship committee chair. She is the founding member of the Atlanta chapter of Cyber Jutsu. In addition, she has received numerous awards, including the 2019 ISC2 Up and Coming Professional of the Year, 2019 Cyber Jiu-Jitsu Rising Star of the Year, and the 2021 CDC ATSDR Blacks in Government Chapter Member of the Year Award. Our third panelist is Annette Otoigi, who is the founder of the podcast entitled In the Know 360. She is the mother of three beautiful children. Annette started writing poetry at the age of 7 years old. And in her spare time, she enjoys exercising, dancing, spending time outdoors, baking, and cooking. Our fourth panelist is Bishaka Jain. Bishaka is a multi-award winning cybersecurity practitioner. She has a rich history of working with various communities across the globe, and is passionate about increasing the diversity and participation in cybersecurity, and has trained over 25,000 diverse candidates, which include Army veterans, police candidates, children, graduate and postgraduate students, and executive professionals. Bishaka is the strong advocate of the philosophy that learning is a lifelong process. Ideas rule the world, and knowledge is power. She believes in bringing out the best in everyone by giving them the gift of their own abilities by making them think figuratively and act accordingly. Our next panelist is Anne Rhodes. Anne began her writing journey at the age of 8 years old. It was not until her sixth grade year of middle school that she discovered her gift of writing. In her sixth grade language arts class, she watched the inauguration of President Bill Clinton. When Dr. Maya Angelou read her The Pulse of the Morning, that gave Anne the inspiration she needed to share her poetry with the world. From there, she started getting her poems published in the school newspaper and local newspapers. Her biggest dream was always to publish a book. With a lot of determination and encouragement from her mother, the late Alma Rhodes, she published her first poetry book in 2016. Anne is currently the author of 6 published books, including 2 poetry, 2 devotional, and 2 children's books. She enjoys encouraging and motivating others through her writing. Thank you, panelists. Right. We will get started with the questions. Our first question is, who or what inspired you to become a poet? We will start with Miss Anne Rhodes.
Thank you, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. As you said in my introduction, as far as inspiration, first of all, my mother, she passed away in January, so she was my biggest motivator of getting my poetry published. And also, I did start writing when I was the age of 8 years old, but I never really discovered that gift until I was in sixth grade. I remember watching the inauguration of President Clinton. I heard Dr. Maya Angelou read her poem on the Pulse of Morning, and it was just something that just touched me, that said, if she can do it, I can do the same thing. It was just her voice. And she was like the biggest inspiration. I remember actually when I was in the 11th grade, she actually spoke at Georgia Southern University. I didn't have a credit card or anything at the time, but I remember my math teacher, she allowed me to use her credit card to purchase a ticket to go see Dr. Maya Angelou. I paid her back and everything. So I remember my brother and I driving us about a 3-hour drive from where I live at. And I came back the same day, went to school the next day. I was tired, but Dr. Maya Angelou was probably one of my biggest inspirations. And I was actually glad I was able to see her in person at a young age.
That's outstanding. Just to have that opportunity and experience. So I know Maya Angelou is one of my favorite poets also. All right, Bishaka, what are your thoughts? Who or what inspires you to become a poet?
When I was 8 years old, uh, I got into a poetry writing competition at my school, and that is when we were not told about the subject. We were given the subject on the spot, and the subject was flower. All my life, especially my childhood, I have had this thing that I want to be the best at whatever I pursue. Even if I am not the best, I want to try to be the best. That has been my agenda in life, you can say, and I am very open and vocal about it. So it was flower. And my parents always taught me one thing, to see the good in everything. So something about flower that I liked were the colors. because, according to me, colors can establish a focal point and create interest where there is none. Colors are powerful, just like words. So I wrote that poem just thinking, what about flowers is that fascinates me? And I won second prize for that. And the person who won first prize, I was in the second standard, by the way. The person who won the first prize was in the ninth standard, very older. If you see, 7 years older to me. And that was mine was only 8 line poem, but that was powerful. And the person who won wrote some 32 lines poem. So, and I was younger also. So that point in time, I understood one thing, that it's very easy to make somebody understand something through words, through poetries. Perhaps that person might not be a great reader or interested reader. So poetry is quick and powerful if at all somebody tries to understand. And then we have Mr. Harivansh Rai Bachchan, father of great Amitabh Bachchan, who has written many Hindi poetries which are recited by the king of Bollywood, I would say, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. If you hear him, his father's words through his son's voice, whatever he said made a lot of sense and was very powerful. So for me, Harivansh Rai Bachchan is that person, I my go-to person for poetry, because he hits the chord even in silence. So yes. Mhm.
Thanks, you left the meeting by mistake, so I'm gonna pass the same question over to Tamika.
Thank you, Kenneth. So, actually, who inspired me to become a poet? Actually, listening to raps, female rap group Salt and Pepper kind of inspired me um, when I was writing their one of their songs on paper, and I started looking at the words and thinking, this is something like rhetorical. I mean, um, something that I've done in grade school, you know, connecting the words together, rhyming, making sense to it. And I was like, if they could do it, I could do this too. So I started writing rhymes. And then as time went on, dealing with the rhyme, the rhythm, the music, I pretty much took a communication class. And there I was asked to read a book. And in this book, I had to read about a fruit, which is an orange. And after, like reading a um, descriptively about an orange, I was like, wow, this is deep about an orange, how the juices is flowing on the side of the, as you cut it. I was like, whoa, this is deep. So I felt like really intrigued where I wanted to start like writing poetry without lyrics, with feelings, with emotion. Because when I started with the whole thinking about female rap groups, I was like in like seventh grade. But when I went into high school, I just felt that, I guess emotions and everything just I started paying attention to that within me. And I was like, man, I want to write things that's so meaningful so people can like really like, wow, this really touched me. And then as time goes on, in my life, I kind of was practicing it when people in my family or friends pass away. So especially when they're pretty, I had a good relationship with them. I would write a poem, at their funeral. So it was just it started with rapping, and then I just got a little deeper into it without the words, and I mean without the music and everything, because it seemed like it's much more meaningful when you just sit back and think after the artists read their piece. So
Sunny, you are on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry, now I'm back. Annette, can you describe or tell who or what inspired you to become a poet?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I would have to say my middle sister. She inspired me to write poetry. At the age of 7, I lived with her. I was between households, between both my sisters and my parents. And so she used to keep a journal. And I know that one poet here mentioned flowers. And it just brought me back to her doodling in her journal alongside with her poetry. And I decided to pick up a pen and start writing my own version of poetry. My poetry usually reflects life and God and my spirituality. And it's a way to connect with the universe and energies. And so that's how I got inspired. Whatever emotions I was going through that day when I was writing it, I would reflect it on my writing. And also, I would go to an environment that typically will draw out my emotions. And one of them is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Washington, D.C., but it's called Haynes Park. And it's right off the Potomac. It's between Fort McNair and the airport. And so I would sit there on the bench and watch the airplanes fly ahead and the cars bustling by alongside with the train, because we have various transportation. And so whenever I felt the need to express my feelings, I would go there and write. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing. I know we all get inspired. I know I get inspired by a location, changing scenery. Inspires you to write. Dr. Haseeb?
I'm actually the imposter in this group because I'm not a poet. However, poetry has been a very important aspect of my life. And when I started writing poetry, it was simply to master the English language. I felt like you had to look for words and look for rhymes, and you had to play with words in order to make meaning with smaller sentences. And especially when you're trying to rhyme and give it rhythm. And amazingly enough, in 7th grade, one of my poems got published in the local newspaper. And I even got 15 takas in local currency. So that was a huge inspiration. And then at about the same time in the 7th grade, my parents split up and we were going through a very tough financial situation. And I accidentally launched my first business making hand-painted cards with short messages in a poem to suit the occasion. So my very first card was for my older brother's friend's wedding. And it was such a hit at the wedding that I started getting orders of all kinds. And I said, wow, I'm in 7th grade and I'm making money selling all these cards. And it was through all that painting, writing, calligraphy, and all of that. And since then, poetry and the English language has been a very important part of my life. But as I said, I really don't consider myself a poet, but the book that I published actually goes through my brain. You will see my brain developing from 7th grade all the way to high school and beyond. In 75, I stopped writing. I really haven't written a poem since that time. But that book contains more than 100 of my poems from that era in progression. So you will see how my mind is developing, and I'm getting better at the language, better in my emotions, and I'm discovering love and going through the political things and all that is going on. And I started to express that over there.
That's outstanding. Just to share that poetry allowed you to not only learn the English language, but you're able to record your development. I mean, you can just pass it down to your family, just leaving a legacy. That's just so important.
That was just amazing, because what happened was that all those things were left behind in Bangladesh when I came to America. And it was very fortunate that my wife, who visited Bangladesh after I'd already come, went through and found all these things, and termites had already started eating them. And so these collection of poems were saved. So I'm very thankful that she did that during one of her trips. So that's how they got preserved.
Nice. It's a story in itself. All right, our next question is: improve creative thinking and self-awareness are some of the benefits of writing and reciting poetry. How has poetry enhanced your life? We'll start with Tamiko.
Sorry, I was on mute. Okay. How has it enhanced my life? Well, I became more confident, in writing and speaking with feelings. It helped me like really understand and engage with certain conversations where there's emotion involved and everything. So, and it helps me to express myself a little better on paper, especially if I can't relate it a little bit with certain people. With certain people that they might like, okay, I still don't get it. But if I put it on paper and express it in a way for them to understand it, because I can expand what I'm trying to say and everything. So yeah, so it helps me sometimes to communicate with others, the world, expressing myself, rather than just sometimes having a conversation.
I agree, because I know I learn better by reading more so. I'm like a visual learner. So I think that's very, I send you recognize that and tailor your communication to accommodate people who are visual learners as well.
Yes,
Right.
for some reason I thrive to get people to really understand me. I'm like, well, how can I do it? Should I do it this way, that way? So yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Vishaka, what are your thoughts?
Poetry has helped me to forgive and let go. I don't believe in holding grudges, but yes, there were times where uh, I was cheated by people, or they were not good people. So the best way is not to glorify your problem, but to find the solution. I am a very big advocate of positivity. So poetry helps me in just penning down my thoughts and letting go. Also, if there's someone who is very dear to me, I write poems about them also. And if they are fortunate, I hand over their poems to them. But that happens only when I feel that's right. So if you are in my good books, there certainly is a poem written for you in my diary. But that, if I'll share or not, that very much depends on my mood. And poetry helps me to balance my mood. So, yes, letting go, expressing love, being grateful, other things that has come through poetry. I don't believe in, holding on any kind of feeling, because I want to explore anything for a longer period of time. Can cage you and your thoughts and stop you from growing. So that is why they say that even failures are important, because they are important to reroute your career or your life. So, according to me, just write it down, ink it, and let go. That has been my funda in life, and then forget, because there will be new opportunities, new people, and it's very important to rock the boat. People who care for you will stay in the boat, and the unnecessary ones can be rocked very conveniently. So, time and again, cleaning my energy has been important, and poetry has been that medium through which I kept my energy clean.
Powerful. Thank you for sharing. Just a way to cleanse yourself is to write it down and not take it with you. Powerful. And what are your thoughts?
Pretty much, going back to what the other panelists have said, for poetry, for me, it's a great stress relief. It's a way to express my feelings. I know one of the panelists that said that his poetry was a progression of when he was younger, when he was in middle school and on to adulthood, which my very first book is titled From the Beginning Until Now. So that's pretty much from the poems when I was little through college, middle school, and, just trying to motivate people. I remember with me, agreeing, my mother was one of my greatest motivators. I wasn't raised up with my father. So one of the poems that I have in my book called Face My Reality, it was my way of expressing not being able to be raised up with my father, how they affected me. So I've written poems about different people, but different, trying to motivate people. But again, a great stress relief and expressing my feelings on paper.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. It's the common theme that poetry gives us an avenue to relieve our stress and emotions. Annette, what are your thoughts?
Ditto. No, just kidding. I would have to say I'm aligned with what Bishaka was saying as far as energy and spirituality. I find I go to poetry for self-help and also my spiritual and emotional growth. With that being said, I have no other things to say. Everybody pretty much took the words out of my mouth. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Dr. Asif, what are your thoughts?
Well, as I told you, my poems were being published in the local newspaper. So at that time, I didn't know this was what was happening, but essentially, it was helping me build a personal brand. That word wasn't familiar with me, but I realized that by being in the newspaper, it helped me gain a lot of friends. And it opened up many doors, including a full-time teaching job as an English teacher at an international school. Because remember, I was in Dhaka, Bangladesh, where the local language is Bangla. So not very many people know English at that proficiency level. So therefore, knowing English opens up doors, and having your name in the newspaper opens doors. It actually also helped me meet my wife, because she knew me by name before I met her. So that was pretty amazing. And she used to sell my newspapers at her high school. Because what we did was, if you think about today's Facebook, at that time we didn't have Facebook, but what we did was we created a youth group with all the local schools. And then we said we will give everybody ability to either write poetry or write whatever they wanted to write in our newspaper, our school newspaper. But because otherwise it wouldn't sell, right? So then we would send all these newspapers to all the various schools. And it just so happened that my future wife to be was one of those reps at one of the schools that used to sell our newspapers at her school. So that's how I eventually met my wife. So it's pretty amazing. And so it's been a very, very important part of me mastering the English language. And I think also helping me make friends, go various places that otherwise would not have been possible. So without that knowledge of English, I wouldn't be in America today.
That's powerful. That poetry enhanced not only your personal life, but your professional life as well. It's those little increment steps that some people think are insignificant, but in your case, they were significant.
I think it actually helped me win the scholarship too, because right after meeting my wife, she told me to apply to America for a scholarship. I said, and I was not a very good student. I mean, I had too many activities to really do extra well in my grades. I mean, they were good, but they were not exceptional. My wife to be told me that, hey, in America, they like you to be a complete human being. They will appreciate all these things that you've been doing. So I wrote my essay. I said, I am not a student genius. But I pride myself in being a complete person. And then I went with my story with my paper cuttings and stories and pictures. And I said, this is who I am. And it actually won me a scholarship. I was stunned.
Fantastic. All right. Our next question is, poetry is able to change a person's thoughts, emotions, and actions. What is one poem you have written or read that has had this impact? And the second part of the question is, can you recite this poem to the audience? We will start with Tamika. Oh, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Actually, I know I mentioned before that I write poems, at funerals, and I felt it was a great impact. But my recent poem that I felt I will feel when I recite it, it would also set an impact. And it was during the pandemic and the George Floyd incident. So I wrote a poem around that time. Well, I wrote 3 poems around that time. And I did put it on LinkedIn. And also I was on a panel and I recited it as well. And it seems like it, with thoughts, emotions, and action, when they pretty much was commenting on it, I felt that it was a great impact to just think of what they should do during this time. Can I recite it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And this is during the time, especially people still going to work, rather you work from home or just going there. So it's called A Poem for Work. Are you okay in your workspace while your coworkers don't have a clue in what you're going through? Do your company care about what's going on right now? Let's do an assessment. I'll show you how. There may be threats and vulnerabilities in the air. Check your company. Do they really care? Have anyone at the job asked how you doing? Are you good? Or you just feel burnt out and your heart is just ruined? So many mixed emotions make it hard to concentrate. Have your coworkers brought up the situation with a warm embrace. But I dare you to go to your BIPOC coworkers and friends. Act like you care and not pretend. You will see warmth from their heart. And this is not the only way, but it's a start. We will all get through this together in this space. But change is more than just high and by in the workplace and WFH. Dehumanizing someone because of the color of their skin, especially in the workplace, do a leadership assessment to understand the trend. Some may not know all that's going on, but everyone definitely know right from wrong. So if you answered all the questions and did the assessment, if it was a positive vibe, then count your blessings. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Just listening to the poems took me back to that time. And I did want somebody to reach out and say, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Miss Ann.
Growing up, you know, I'm a very spiritual person. I always went to church with my mom. And so one poem that's kind of helped me this year with her passing, there's a poem I wrote many years ago. It's actually published in my first poetry book from the beginning up to now. And the title is The Way I Make It Through. The way I make it through is by the will and grace of God. I pray for the Lord to guide me so I can reach for the stars. Sometimes the path I travel on is a tough one I have to face, but nothing is really hard as long as I have God here running my race. I must look to the Lord and thank him and praise him for his name, for the things he has done for me and how he has guided me through the way. I know I'm not the best person or child in this world, but I am a special someone and I can do all things through the Lord. Lord, I ask that you forgive me as I repent for my sins because the devil cannot interfere with me. He can only lose and not win. Your guardian angel stands beside me and protects me from whatever the devil tries to do because I pray and ask for your guidance. And that's the way I make it through. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. That is a very inspiring and timely poem for just those who have lost loved ones, especially mothers. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Bishaka.
So I love stories, and I love listening about people's story, and I'm very talkative. So and also I'm an avid traveler, of course. Since the past 2 years that was not happening, and I am amidst my travel blogging internship, which I did not complete. I just joined, and then there was this pandemic after 7 months. But why do I travel? There's a poem on that, and that's an old poem, but it's very much relevant. And uh, every person who has been very agile or chaotic would perhaps resonate with what I have to say. So she travels to tame her wandering spirit and enjoy the nature's lyrics. She travels to camouflage her melancholy away from the material idiosyncrasies in search of a story, a testimony to pen down. With her dirty shoelaces, she peregrinated from place to place. The mountains, the valleys, and the seas. She tried everything. Aspiring for tranquility, she stopped by, absorbing the picturesqueness, lest the moment may never come again. So that is why I travel, and that's the short poetry on traveling. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishaka, for sharing. I can identify with the traveling because I was an avid travel before the pandemic. Traveling just a way to for me to reflect and release and just rejuvenate myself. Thank you. Dr. Haseeb.
In my case, I have always been a forward-looking person. So that's something that my mom taught me. And by 1975, I was very convinced that we should always learn from the past, solve the problems of the present, and then chart the future of our lives. I mean, that was what I learned to do. So in 1975, when I was 17 years old, I wrote this poem that kind of captures that thought. It's called Perspectives. Evening crept into the day, and mother's eyes were wet. I saw her move her lips and say, "Isn't it beautiful to see the sunset?" Away from her, I turned my eyes and looked at the eastern sky. "Isn't it better to see it arise?" I said, and I heard her cry.
Yes, thank you for sharing that descriptive piece. I felt that I was right there with you. Annette?
I must say, I loved everybody's poems. Thank you for sharing your poetry here. Mine is called Disparity. And I wrote this during the pandemic and everything that was going on as well. Disparity. The clouds can be gloomy and poke through the skies, like the fumes of exhaust accumulating for a hint of despair. Too many pockets of fumes rumbling for another glance of despair. The smoke from the debris of hatred rummaged in the air. The beliefs of distorted hearts rolled in like a lightning bolt with discord. One too many generations of frozen hearts to repair. Thank you.
Thank you. Another example of descriptive language in poetry. Okay. We're moving on to the next segment, which is our poetry improv segment. I'll share my screen. The prompt for this segment is, I have never in my life experienced such joy. Who would like to provide the first line for this poem?
The excitement will never end.
All right. Thank you, Anne. Put it in the chat. Anyone else?
Because we are all made of sand. It's sand, S-A-N-D.
Although we are made of sand, we can soar to the sky.
Life was too short to cry.
Can I end this and say bye-bye?
I don't know if I was tracking, but I pre-wrote something. This probably doesn't rhyme, but with everybody. Although I wrote Through adversity, grit, and thought-provoking chaos comes wisdom and repeating cycles of dismay, broken like a piercing heart aching for one's love.
Nice. Can you place that in the chat, Annette?
Sure.
All right. I think I missed one line from Bishaka.
Because life is too short to cry.
And then Tamiko added the goodbye portion. I like that one. Can you repeat it?
Can we just end the session and just say bye-bye?
That's too much. I think we should have done the whole thing with this improv thing. That would have been fun.
Oh, we can. Definitely, I enjoyed it. Hopefully, the next time.
Yeah, we should do a full hour of improv and have everybody's microphones on.
Right. Do we have a brave soul willing to recite what we've recorded?
I say give it to Ken Bob. He's got a great voice.
All right.
Oh, yes.
It's the microphone. Is it in the chat?
It's in the chat. And the first line is, I have never in my life experienced such joy.
The first line I see is the excitement will never end.
Mhm.
Is that it?
And then it's a few other lines.
Okay, so I'll read. The excitement will never end because we all made of sand. Because we are all made of sand, we can soar to the sky. Although we are made of sand, we can soar to the sky. Because life is too short to cry. And can we just end this session and say bye-bye? Through adversity, grit, and thought-provoking chaos comes wisdom and repeating cycle of dismay, broken like a pierced heart aching for one's love. Oh,
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kim.
welcome.
And that brings us to our last question. What current or upcoming projects, events would you like to share with the audience? We'll start with Dr. Asib.
Okay. Current event is actually happening this Thursday, and you're actually aware of it, Shani. I'm actually trying to compete. I'm trying to qualify to compete in the World Championships of Public Speaking hosted by Toastmasters. And so far, I've reached the district finals, which is on Thursday. And everybody can come. And if I do make it through there, then I might qualify because there's going to be one more round after that.
Outstanding. We're looking forward to witnessing you go on to victory with the public speaking.
Keep praying. It's the English language and the poetry that I think got me this far.
Anne?
Well, I'll be participating in an appreciation event in my hometown of Hogansville. That'll be on Saturday, May 14th. Also, I will have a book signing event coming up on June the 11th at a bookstore in LaGrange called Pretty Good Books. And I'll also be working on my third book, Mac the Magnificent Mouse, for my children's book as well.
Outstanding. A lot of good things. Tamika?
Excuse me. To be honest, I don't have any type of events that's going on, and actually, just by doing this this event right here, it kind of made me go on Google to see, well, poetry events, and I seen like a bunch of events that I never knew existed because I always wanted to go to a poetry event, and there's like 2 tonight. You know, there's a competition in July, $3,000 for the prize. I was like, well, maybe I need to enter this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so, but unfortunately, I do not have any type of events. But like with my poetry and my raps, I am writing them down so I can try to create a book.
All right, we look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
Bishaka.
So my next event is on the 3rd of May at B-Sides Vancouver, and I will be speaking on the cybersecurity mindset, a ceaseless erudition. So that's my public speaking event, and besides, my life is an event full of drama. So everybody is welcome to talk to me and have a taste of that drama. So yes.
Outstanding. Annette.
I don't have a specific event, although I've been going on IG, Instagram Live every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as you can see, our host, Shawnee Smith, and I, we usually come up with topics every Friday if you're interested. It's posted on IG, In the Know 360. And currently I'm writing a book. Shawnee has inspired me to put my pen to paper. And I've been just dragging my feet with writing a book. So hopefully I can get it done by the end of the year. The title is still in the works, although it has to deal with something in regards to empty promises. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette, for sharing. We look forward to your upcoming projects, updates. Thank you all so much. I'm honored. I'm inspired that you decided to join me this evening. And I hope to do it again soon. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the weekend and a fantastic week.
Thank you for doing this. It was very, very enjoyable. I had fun.
Yes.
Thank you.
It was